I cannot believe the number of people who have written to me and asked me to comment on this particular subject, black fatigue, a subject that I know a little bit about, being the expert in and on everything that I am. You know, the term black fatigue is interesting, but the other kind nobody talks about is what's fascinating. You see, when most people hear the term black fatigue, they think, of course, about the Mary Frances Winters book and the concept that centuries of racism have worn black America down. That's the politically safe definition. But there's another kind of black fatigue that we know about, which is brewing in the country right now. And it's got nothing to do with Jim Crow or redlining. It's the exhaustion shared by white people and plenty of black folks with a small, noisy faction of our population whose behavior seems engineered to feed every negative stereotype at full volume. Now let's be blunt, okay? And let's face it, why wouldn't we? Being blunt is also a nice way of saying, let's tell the truth. You know exactly the type of which I speak. They're the ones showing up on your social feed in shaky vertical videos, brawling in Popeyes over a chicken sandwich, throwing, haymakers on a Carnival cruise deck after a buffet argument, screaming mindless obscenities at the gate agent because their flight's late, or turning an entire Waffle House into a WWE event at 3 in the morning. And in a world where everything is filmed, uploaded, and memed within minutes, those few become the unofficial ambassadors for Black America in the minds of millions who never meet anyone else. When the circus becomes the show is what we're talking about. These incidents are not statistically representative of most black people's lives, of course, not even close. But they're loud and they're visual and they play perfectly into the algorithms. The outrage and spectacle travel, for the most part, as you can understand, faster than normalcy. A 40-second clip of a bonnet-wearing brawler on a Spirit Airlines flight gets more clicks than 1,000 clips of people quietly going to work, paying bills, raising families. You know the drill. And because so much of modern perception is driven by what goes viral, the clowns start to define the circus. The end result? Millions of people, white, black, Hispanic, you name it, are tired. Not tired in the, oh, this is mildly annoying sense, but tired in the, my patience for public foolishness is officially gone sense. The kind of fatigue that makes you avoid certain places, or roll your eyes at yet another viral melee, or quietly moving your seat when the screaming starts. You might want to call it the race car trap, because one of the most toxic patterns in this smaller, more volatile subset is the reflexive deployment of, you guessed it, the race card. Every conflict, from being told no at a store to being removed from a flight for disruptive behavior, it all gets framed as discrimination. And while real racism does exist and should be called out, certainly, playing that card for every self-inflicted embarrassment does two dangerous things. First, it cheapens legitimate claims of racism. And second, it trains the broader public to tune out even the real ones. Now, plenty of black people will say it privately. You know, that wasn't racism. That was you acting a fool and getting consequences. You hear it, and you can see the results, obviously, from all over the place. But in the public square, calling out your own can earn you accusations of selling out or airing dirty laundry. You see, the problem is refusing to call it out. It lets the behavior fester and lets the worst ambassadors speak for everyone. This is called the bonnet debate and the decline of standards. You see, this brings up the bonnet discourse. I'm sorry, one of my new favorite manifestations of this particular type of social vituperation. Now, it might sound trivial, but it's emblematic. There's a faction that insists it's perfectly fine to walk through airports and restaurants and even job interviews dressed like they just rolled out of bed. The bonnet, sagging pajama pants, filthy slippers. You know what I'm talking about. It's the I dare you to judge me uniform. And the truth? People do judge. Employers, fellow travelers, the public at large. They form impressions instantly. And while clothing doesn't define morality, it absolutely communicates self-respect, or the lack of it. A small but defiant slice of the population has decided that social norms are oppression, and any pushback is respectability politics. You see, the result is a slow erosion of shared standards for public behavior, and more fatigue for everyone forced to share space with it. You've seen it before. The clips, fast food, and flying fists, to be alliterative. Look at how many of these viral dust-ups happen in the same venues. Fast food joints, cheap chain restaurants, public transit, airports. Why? Because those are the crossroads of everyday life where frustration meets proximity. Add entitlement, short tempers, and, sometimes a little too much Hennessy, and the smallest slight, a wrong order, a bump shoulder, turns into a full-blown melee. The majority of people in those spaces, black or white, just want to get their food and go home. They don't want to dodge punches or throwing trays in a McDonald's or have their vacation cruise detour into a security incident. The fatigue isn't about race in those moments. It's about being trapped in someone else's chaos and knowing it's going to make tomorrow's news cycle. And remember, social media are a megaphone. Here's where the fatigue goes national. Social media don't just amplify these moments. They package them for maximum outrage. Clip it down to 20 seconds, slap on a clickbait caption, and boom, another million views. And because many of the people watching have limited real-world interaction across racial lines, those clips become in essence, their mental library. And you can't tell people that's not representative until you're blue in the face. But perception is sticky. You see, a dozen high-octane viral flights, I guess, can outweigh millions of quiet, normal interactions, especially when politicians and pundits or race hustlers on all sides of those clips are there to advance their own narratives. And it's also, keep in mind, the notion of black-on-black fatigue. Here's the part the mainstream conversation skips. A lot of black folks are just as fed up, if not more, than their white counterparts. They're tired of having to be unofficial ambassadors every time, public embarrassment trends. Tired of having their professionalism undercut by someone else's viral foolishness. They're tired of watching legitimate grievances about discrimination get drowned out by performative outrage over self-inflicted messes. You know, in some communities, that fatigue turns into quiet withdrawal, avoiding public spaces where they know nonsense is likely to break out. In others, it turns into active pushback, elders confronting younger people about how they're presenting themselves. But it's all born of the same frustration. You can't demand respect from the world while publicly disrespecting yourself and everyone around you. And here's why it matters. The reason this kind of black fatigue matters is that it's corrosive. And it wears down public patience. It makes cross-racial solidarity harder because the noise drowns out the original and the signal. And for Black America, it risks letting a small but visible faction define the cultural image for everyone else. When the loudest, most chaotic voices get the spotlight, the rest of us, regardless of race, end up playing the defense. That's not sustainable. A healthy society can't run on endless vital chaos and then demand unconditional respect. Now, there's a way out. The only way to shrink this kind of fatigue is to call the behavior what it is, without fear of being labeled anti-black or racist for pointing out the obvious. That means black communities holding their own accountable, not for the benefit of white opinion, but for their own cultural health. It means refusing to let the race card be played as a get-out-of-accountability-free card. And it means pushing back against the idea that low standards are somehow empowering. And my friend, most importantly, it means remembering that the worst ambassadors don't actually represent the whole, but they do represent themselves. And when they act like fools in public, it's okay, necessary even, to say so. Black fatigue, in this sense, isn't about oppression fatigue. It's about spectacle fatigue. It's the exhaustion of sharing public space with people who treat it like a stage for chaos and then cry foul when anyone objects. And while the numbers are small, the impact is huge, because in the age of the viral clip, it only takes one fool with a smartphone to make millions tired all over again. Now remember, what I just said will invariably be misunderstood, objected to by some. But you know what I'm saying is absolutely correct. And I'd love for you to weigh in. What do you think? Does this make sense? Do you agree, disagree? I want to hear from you in the section provided below. Please subscribe to the channel. Like this video. Hit that little bell so you're notified of live streams and videos. And whatever you do, my friends, I always ask you, as we always say, to comment as you see fit.